Hey, everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm so happy to have you here, as I am with every episode. And of course, I have a very special episode to share with you today. But before I do that, I just want to remind everybody that my book, Owner Shift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, is an Amazon bestseller. Yay. And it's getting some great reviews. So if you haven't picked up the book yet, you can pick it up at Amazon. And if you do and you like it, I'd be really grateful if you would leave me a review so I can understand what you got out of the book or what you liked about it, and others can as well. So let's move on to why we're here today. Today, I'm bringing you a glimpse into the future through the eyes and experiences of a group of young leaders and entrepreneurs who are involved with the Los Angeles-based Exponential Destiny program. So what is Exponential Destiny and why is it important? The program was founded in 2015 by Shingles, an amazing success story that you can learn all about by checking out episode number 161. And since I wrote that before I knew he would actually be here, you are getting Marcus in live and in person as well today. So big treat. So he founded that in partnership with a high school located in South Central Los Angeles. The program is focused on immersing youth from underserved communities in the skills necessary to become modern-day startup entrepreneurs. The program's objectives are to help young people future-proof themselves, build peer-to-peer relatability, look through a lens into the art of the possible, set expectations, and much more. Participants like today's guests are exposed to entrepreneurial thinking, taught not to be afraid to fail, very important, gain expertise into cutting-edge technologies like AR, VR, robotics, AI, machine learning, connectivity, blockchain, and more, and how to implement them to make exponential change in the way people and businesses think and act. And you can learn more about what's going on with this program at exponentialdestiny.com. So I'm going to turn over the microphone to Marcus Shingles as the co-founder of the program, along with Marco Vargas, to talk about exactly what it is, tee it up, and then we're going to get the experiences from 6 of the young leaders who have been involved in the program and experienced the program and are now sharing the program with others. So Marcus, where do we go?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate seeing you again. And I'm really glad that you have the extended team of Exponential Destiny on your podcast. This is going to be an exciting conversation because I'm excited about it because I haven't really seen an opportunity like this in a generation. And let me set a little context here. Because I'm not saying that to be provocative. I actually think there's something very interesting happening. So as you described, in 2015, I adopted a high school in South Central Los Angeles that most of these young people that are on the call now were part of that class, good chunk of them. They were 15-year-olds at the time. They're now in their 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kind of range. And Marco in particular, who was a valedictorian of the high school. He got a full ride scholarship to Dartmouth, first in his family to do so. He was, kind of a natural born leader in the program, along with Kevin and Samantha. And the program itself was really an attempt to try to help a public high school in South Central Los Angeles become more progressive in what they were teaching, the relevancy of what they were teaching young people. And fortunately, the principal, Tommy Chang, and the superintendent, Tommy Welch at the time, were completely on board to take the high school and try to do something unique to teach kind of modern day entrepreneurialism. This wasn't kind of a pipe dream. No, I was saying it wasn't a pipe dream. It was very much a pragmatic view of what are some real skills that are tangible skills that an adult learner or young learner can leverage right now to be relevant in the new jobs economy that's starting to form. So it was those topics that you're discussing, VR and AR and AI and blockchain, et cetera. The thing that's interesting about this, and this is where it took a turn, Mike, is Marco and I would do this program almost nightly with a group of young people from the community. This was right when COVID hit. That was our impetus to do this. Was COVID hit, all the kids were out of school. It was mayhem. They were missing their education. So Marco and I kind of teamed up, and we had this basically daily, I guess you could kind of call it a podcast. It was just more of a Zoom meeting we sent out to everybody that would want to participate. And we tried to take the Exponential Destiny program. We used to call it Exponential Entrepreneur, that we did with the high school when he was 2015. We tried to take it out a little bit more to the masses on this daily Zoom call where we're just mentoring people, right? And kind of knowing that they weren't going to school because of COVID, and everyone's trying to do home education, et cetera. Here's what was interesting though. We did that for about 3 or 4 months, and it started to get some diminishing returns. I mean, there's only so much we can talk about on a call to try to educate people about new things, right? In these fields of AI and robotics and 3D printing and nanotech and biotech, et cetera. So it turned out that I was starting to have a lot of client demand for virtual reality and metaverse projects. This was over a year ago. And there was one particular group I was working with of about 500 executives that were part of this community called Abundance 360, where I was brought in as the guest expert and speaker to talk about how the metaverse and virtual reality is relevant today. And remember, this was over a year ago. So this was before Zuckerberg changed the name of Facebook to Meta, and everyone knew about Metaverse. So we were definitely ahead of the curve in talking about how powerful this could be. And so I started to do a lot of projects for executives, CEOs of companies. And I talked to Marco about it, and we agreed that, what would be a great way to get people to learn is, why don't we just have them shadow the projects I was doing with these CEOs of these companies? Because we're doing it all on Zoom anyways because of COVID. So I wasn't meeting with them in person. So it was very conducive for having others participate. So literally all the folks that you see on the line right now, I got them formally under NDAs, so they wouldn't share any client information, et cetera. We kept it real proper so the client felt comfortable with all these other individuals joining the call. But that's what we did. And we did about 8 major projects in the metaverse using virtual reality, where I was advising them and consulting them on how to think about experiential and immersive capabilities, what you can do in virtual reality, as well as the hardware and the tech stuff. And this group of young people that are part of Exponential Destiny, who I've been mentoring for a while, Marco and I had been mentoring, started to participate in the client projects I was doing, just simply listening in on the conversations, how I was advising, a consumer product company or a brokerage firm or an educational institution or a group of investors building an airport in Thailand. Whatever my client was, they would just listen to the dialogue and how I would inquiry with them about what their business objectives were, their strategy, and really do advisory consulting to them in the context of virtual reality and augmented reality. Okay. So that was the setup. And after about 6 weeks of this group listening in on those conversations, they developed the technical skill sets around the hardware and software for virtual reality, as well as some of the storytelling characteristics that they were just digitally native to, being kind of TikTok storytellers, digitally native to that. And it turned out that they went from just listening in on the conversations to where after about 6 weeks, they started to get excited about the virtual reality capabilities and technology and progressed really fast on it, really quickly. Like they surpassed my capabilities, right, in terms of learning it and understanding it. And even more so, virtual reality environments to design in the metaverse is a creative skill set. It's not a technical skill set. I akin it to developing a PowerPoint presentation. That's how you develop in 3 dimensions in virtual reality. So I can develop a metaverse site for you, basically your future website as a business executive or a school or what have you, and get you in the metaverse. And I can design that space using software that essentially is a skill set of editing a TikTok video and loading it up. I mean, I'm being a little bit facetious, but it's not much. It's more of a creative skill set than it is a technical. It's features and functions. It's not writing code. And now think about that. Yeah, pause and think about that for a second, because that's pretty interesting. What I'm saying is the next generation of the internet Web 3.0, which now Zuckerberg has really launched, by changing his company to Meta. This whole virtual reality space, the Metaverse, the third generation of the internet, where you experience and immerse yourself into the internet, is, from a development standpoint, relies more on creative storytelling skill sets and imagination than it does on hard coding skills. And that's a first, and that's very interesting. It's like 1992, Mike, and you and I are talking about this thing called the internet, but to actually leverage it as a business, you have to go out and get HTML developers, and you have to get JavaScript developers. You have to have technical skill sets. This is the next generation of that, but we don't need hard coding skills. I mean, you can use hard coding skills, but you don't need it. You can go in there and create things with your hands in virtual reality, like you would like a carpenter. You can build a house, So my point is, it's democratizing the entry point, the cost to do this, as well as the entry point to do this for a skill set. And so I found that rather than using resources from a big consulting firm that I've been part of the top tier management consulting firms in the world as a partner, as an executive in these firms. I realized that the more creative skill set that's better designing this virtual reality spaces, the metaverse spaces, aren't from those overpriced skill set models. They're more from the group that we have on the discussion today, which are young people, by the way, or it could be adult learners. We've done a lot with adult learners as well. But my point is, we focus on low income, underserved communities where people are byproducts of the public school system that aren't getting educated on new economy skill sets. And we go in as a nonprofit now into those communities. We adopt mentees. We bring mentees in, people from the community, and we upskill them and reskill them into metaverse creators, basically teaching them the skill sets to design the next generation of the internet. And they are exceptional at it. And so the group we have on the call right now, we've done over 30 projects. And this was before Mark Zuckerberg changed his company from Facebook to Meta, and everyone's talking about it. We've been doing this for over a year now. And we created a nonprofit because we do two things. We go into either a business, but we really have a preference on working with schools. We go into a school, we help them transform their education and learning through immersive and experiential metaverse technologies. But we also upskill and reskill young people or adult learners from low-income, underserved communities. So in a matter of 8 weeks, we're getting them into a professional, employable career. And then we employ them on other projects at professional salaries. So that's kind of the basis for the model. So I'll pause there for a second because I'd like to introduce the team, because the team you're talking to are my co-founders and executives at Exponential Destiny, all of them between the ages of 18 and 23 or so. The majority of them from low-income, underserved communities. And we're now working with schools in Chicago, New York, Thailand, Perth, Australia, Florida. We just did a major project for Broward School District, the 6th largest school district in the United States, with their whole chief administration officer and their whole teachers and students to help them transform themselves around immersive and educational learning. And we've done about 23 or 24 commercial projects for consumer product companies, for brokerage firms. Samantha, Marco, and I just had a meeting with the CEO and executive team of The Honest Company with Jessica Alba, the founder of The Honest Company. And they were a real pleasure. They had us in for a few hours to talk to them about the metaverse and how they could use it around creative experiences. So very interesting model. And again, the goal is to upskill and reskill individuals that are in under-resourced communities that aren't getting access to this education, but get them into professional careers. And our feeling is that we've got about a 1-year window before everybody's offering this as a service. We just want to make sure that it doesn't all go to the big consulting firms. You heard Accenture, I think, just bought 60,000 headsets of Oculus headsets. I mean, so the big consulting firms are going to get into this. I was at Bain, I was at Deloitte, I was at Ernst & Young, et cetera. I'm trying to get another consulting advisory group. Marco and I are trying to do this in a nonprofit model to try to really, the main goal is to upskill and reskill people into this profession.
Marcus, before you make the introductions, one question. You got it at the end of how you're, looking to maybe roll this out and how you're going to take the experience from that started at, I think it started at Nava College Prep Academy.
Yeah, that's the high school in South Central Los Angeles. It's adjacent to Jefferson High School. Yeah.
And so thanks for sort of giving us the seed of what the future might look like. But why did you start this in the first place? What prompted you to see this need or want to do it?
Well, I mean, it's quite obvious. I had a lot of my family is in the public school system or professors in universities. And I had two kids that were two adult children now that went through college. One of them went to a private school. And I didn't feel like either of them got the education. And they went to good schools. I didn't feel like either of them got the education to make them employable in the new economy.
Okay.
I mean, I was constantly trying to interject to reskill them into, just an example, my daughter was a biology major, and I was really emphasizing to focus on biotech and to understand what CRISPR, Cas9 is, and gene editing, et cetera, and that whole field. And that just wasn't something they were talking about in their private school back then. So my point is, I thought if these educational institutions are struggling to keep up, and I was consulting some boards of prominent MBA programs, if these schools aren't keeping up, can you imagine a public high school in an really underserved community like South Central Los Angeles? So I reached out to a high school there that I read in the LA Times that was just trying to reinvent themselves. They kind of hit scorched earth and they're trying to reinvent themselves. And the community adopted the school to try to reinvent it. They actually won the RFP bid against some some firms that actually help schools reinvent themselves. The community actually won it. So anyways, I reached out to a high school principal and I basically said, you know what? I'm talking MBA, I'm advising MBA programs. I'm talking to CEOs about the type, Fortune 100 CEOs I'm working with on the type of future of labor, AI, robotics, et cetera. A lot of the jobs that most people are getting trained for in school today aren't going to even exist, blue collar and white collar. So the thought was, I just have a passion for mentorship and working with young people. So I contacted the principal from the high school and said, hey, I'm looking upstream at the colleges that are going to recruit from your school, as well as the businesses that are going to hire labor. In addition, some kids may not have the option to go to college, and they have opportunities still to be professionally successful in a for-profit or nonprofit business if they just learn those tools of a modern day entrepreneur. They don't have to be dependent on that. And my other premise was, I think kids will get really excited about this because you walk into a classroom and you start talking about 3D printing and this was before blockchain was on the radar, self-driving cars were on the radar. I mean, so we were getting in there talking about this in the school before any of this was even being talked about. I mean, you can ask Marco and the team on the line right now, because they can flash back to when they were 15 years old in terms of the way, I don't know, Marco, do you remember the first day I came to your guys' class back in school? And what did you guys think besides you probably all thought I was a little nuts too?
I was literally going to say that. We thought you were crazy, but it was like a good crazy. It's crazy to see how much has happened since then. Like, we were talking about Bitcoin when I was 15 years old, and it was like $1,000, and it's increased since then. But like, those are the kind of experiences that we all had, and it's definitely been, at least for me, like, it's been a whole journey, right? And I think everyone has had their own journey as an exponential entrepreneur. Big thanks to the pilot program at our college prep, but the fact that, like, now that we're adults, right, young adults, and now we have the capacity to, make this our full-time career, and really build out a whole infrastructure for supporting communities like South Central. That's, I think, the most exciting part of where we're going. Now we have the capacity and the infrastructure to do that.
And Mike, let me just interject something real quickly, and then I'd really like you to talk to the team, because I've said enough, and you really got to hear from this group. But this is the goal that Marco and this Kevin, Sam, Zack, Pablo, Iris, the core leadership team of Exponential Destiny. We created this nonprofit. We incorporated it about 6 months ago because we have so much demand for schools and businesses that want to transform themselves around the metaverse, especially since Zuckerberg lit it up, changing his company name. But we had already done a bunch of projects before then. The goal is this. We are currently got funded we have 7 schools we're going to work with this year in 2022. We just did Broward County School District in Florida. And maybe in your notes, you can post we published the whole summit we did with the Chief Administration Officer of Broward County, the adult learners, the students. It was a 3-hour summit in virtual reality to transform how, really, it was a proof of concept, the test, how do you transform education and learning using these tools? And it's really important to see the reaction from the teachers and the students and the school administrators who rolled their eyes initially when we approached them. And then, they it's been transformative for them. So we've got 7 schools that we're going to do, as well as some businesses that we're doing. But the key is this: every school that we do, we walk in to transform. We always go out to the community and identify people in really economically distressed situations. Could be a homeless shelter, could be a domestic abuse support group for single moms. It could be students from the actual high school, but people who are in situations where they're really economically stressed. A lot of the jobs that they maybe were trying to prepare for with COVID are going to go away because of AI and robotics. That's a fact. And so we try to adopt, when we go in and help the school, we also get 6 or 7 people from these economically distressed situations. We mentor them and they follow us along the project as we advise the school or the business, just like I did with the original group. And the goal is that we then hire them and put them into professional careers as metaverse designers on the next project, which is what the cycle that we started to do. So not only do we help transform a school or a business, but we're using the labor we use, the resources we use are these young people from these underserved or adult learners from us to get them to like between $50,000 and $70,000 a year professional salaries starting off.
Right.
Because the demand is there for that. Otherwise, this is going to be consumed by all the big consulting firms and that whole market. So we're trying to make this model where we upskill and reskill people. We made it a nonprofit model. So most of the focus, our mission is strictly the upskilling, the reskilling, and transforming a school or an organization.
Okay, cool. All right, good. Let's get to the intros, and then we'll go through everyone's experience.
So let's do this. So Marco, I mentioned, is my co-founder. He's also head of and president of the division that focuses on education institutions. Kevin is head of the commercial division, the group that works with businesses. Zack is our chief platform officer. So Zack is also my nephew, lives in Michigan. And Zack is a Michigan State graduate, and he focuses on really being the relationship between all the vendors, the metaverse platforms that are out there. There's quite a few. We don't really have any preference on which one we use. We use the ones, the lowest cost, that has the most amount of value for, to work with, and it has the most capability. Samantha is an art major at, is it UC, Sam, I know I used to say UC
State University, Los Angeles.
Yeah. So she's in her second or third year as an art major. I like to call out Sam because her art major degree she's our chief design officer, which means she's really great at going in and telling stories in the metaverse, which is a really important skill set to be able to have that storytelling capability, that creative skill set. Iris, who I think is our youngest as of right now. Am I right, Iris? Are you the youngest one in the group right now on the leadership team?
Yeah.
Also from South Central. Go ahead, Iris.
I'm attending UC Santa Barbara in my second year. Right now I'm a pre-bio, but I'm planning to change my major to sociology. And I kind of want to study how schools will benefit off of like VR and all this technological advancement.
Mm.
Yep. And then Pablo, and then Juan, who's not on the call, but Pablo is one of the favorite individuals because he's got Pablo, why don't you tell the story about why you reached out to Marco, and go back to the freezer where you had a bunch of coleslaw you were trying to put into at the fast food restaurant. Can you tell a little bit of that story about what gave you, this is a great story, Mike, because Pablo, graduated from high school, was kind of going down this path of, fast food restaurants and stuff, didn't know what he's going to do, but he shows a lot of self-initiative. Pablo, why don't you take it from there and describe that context?
Yeah. So the story happened in 2018. So I'm a junior in high school. I'm around 16, 17 years old, 15, 16. And I needed a job. So went to my community, saw, there's fast food places everywhere. I applied to McDonald's, the major chains. And the one that accepted me was a small, 10 by 10 foot chicken shack that sells fried chicken in the corner of my house, called Church's Chicken. I was there. I did not have probably more than 2 shifts. I was not employed more than 10 hours there. The life-changing moment that I had was when I was making coleslaw in the freezer. I was elbow deep in, I don't know what kind of syrup they use for the coleslaw, and carrots. But as I was making that, I kind of started to like reflect on my career and what I want to do, as a person, and what is fulfilling for myself. And I kind of started like think as I was in coleslaw. I kind of thought back about like school and people who I knew. And funny enough, Marcus mentioned that the program for Expo was still at its height at its height at my high school. So I kind of reached out to Marcos knowing that he went through the program and he had his own business as with an event staffing company that he started through Expo. So I contacted him. I said that I'm at a dead end job that I haven't been more than 10 hours, and said, is there any way that he could bring me on the staff as part-time waiter, or is anything in the company? I was game for anything. And instead of offering me a job as a band staffer, waiter, he offered me a job as their drone pilot. So they actually wanted to advance more into the field of cinema and get more competitive in the market. So he offered me a job as a drone pilot, and through there, I started my schooling for becoming an FAA licensed drone pilot, and ever since then, I attribute that as kind of like my biggest stepping stone into Expo and kind of learning about tech in a different level than just a regular smartphone or a computer.
And don't forget that all the conversations we were having were on Snapchat, the social media.
Yeah, the context here, Mike, is Marco had his own business at age 18, 19. Pablo's slinging coleslaw on this freezer, realizing what the heck a job is this? And he remembers Marco. Hey, this kid was pretty smart. He's a valedictorian of our high school. He's a pretty smart guy. I wonder what he's up to. So he took the initiative to call Marco and say, Marco, I know you got some businesses you're running through the Exponential Destiny program type of thing. And Marco had one business where he would cater parties and stuff.
Yeah,
it was called
that.
Waiters in Distress.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco, being such an entrepreneur, wanted to get into providing, when he catered a party, wanted to do a drone footage up above the community there in South Central where they could take photos and videos and stuff and post it on social media. He wanted to do some marketing for the parties, and these were weddings and graduation parties in South Central, et cetera. So anyways, that's what Pablo's describing. Is he called up Marco. Marco's like, hey, I'll give you the job. We need a drone operator. Pablo got FAA certified. And now, Pablo is extremely inept at technology. Like he's really skilled in understanding tech. He's not only the drones, but a lot of the heavy tech stuff that we work with at Exponential Destiny, the LiDAR on your phone to take LiDAR of something on your iPhone and then bring it into virtual reality. Pablo's like, he's just a really advanced person in that field now.
So Pablo, you had your hand up. Did you have something to add?
But just to kind of bring the story full circle and kind of talk about the team, and how like organic we've been. I remember while I was contacting Marcos, I was actually sitting in a subway with Iris over here talking about how much I hated churches and we want to something else. That was like a 3-hour conversation I had with Iris and many of the team here way before Expo was even a thing. Kind of show how full circle we all connect back and have history.
So Pablo, as long as I have you, why don't we take you to like your present day experiences? So the last year or so that Marcus was sort of talking about how, the teams come together and what the purpose is. What are you personally into now? And what has your experience been during that time?
Yeah. So where I'm currently at right now is currently in the division of working within my own organization. That's my company that Marcus kind of, I was working on it at the time. We've evolved it and it's branched out into a completely different kind of entity of its own. But in terms of Expo, I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, we've expanded tenfold, and I'm still already learning my own passions and my own kind of ambitions within working for Expo. I mean, it's been. I think that it's amazing that we're the youth in our community and we're able to still be a part of our community and onboard new people every other day and show and really try to talk to them about there's new skill sets that we have to offer you and talk to you about. And
Pablo, maybe share what you did. Share the Miami project. Don't mention the client name, but share the work you did in Miami just to give Mike and the group a sense for the type of work. Yeah, give me
something real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So around March to May, July, Ken and I were working with individual in Miami. He quit his job at a giant tech firm to kind of pursue his own ambitions as an entrepreneur. He attended Ag60, the conference that we aided in January, and he had ambitions of turning Miami into this this hub in VR where people can hop on a headset and come in and kind of just visit Miami in VR sense, in a way, the actual community of what it is, and can get the feel for restaurants, shop owners, just the whole 9 yards. So Kevin and I were actually the leaders on that project. So we are flown down to Miami to support him in bringing along the actual Miami landscape into VR. So my role in specific was asset creation. So I was in charge of bringing in, for example, a storefront into virtual reality. So using LiDAR, scanning entire storefronts, bring that into modeling programs on my computer, shaping that, making it compatible with our software on VR, and just pretty much creating aspects of Miami into virtual reality, all from scratch, all from using tech like VR, drone modeling. I actually brought out my drone out to Miami. Kind of considered I'm licensed with the FAA, so a perk of that was I brought out our drone and I flew around key parts, kind of like Windward Walls, which is a popular attraction for tourists. So I was able to scan that entire landscape and bringing that kind of mesh into virtuality. So essentially, that project was Karen and I went out there and digitizing Miami into a platform kind of like Spatial or Engage that we use.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. Why don't we go to Samantha Aguilar? Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the program and what you're working on.
Okay. Hello, I'm Samantha. Hi. I'm currently a senior at Cal State LA, so I'm still studying while doing this. But the way I got involved was I was in the entrepreneur class as well in high school. And I was in there, honestly, as a hobby, trying to just learn all this new technology, just see what's going on in the world, because I had no background experience with technology. I'm not a very technological person. And so I took the class for fun, and I did learn a lot. But fast forward a bit later, I was doing Waiters in Distress with Marco, so his waiting company at the moment as well, for some little extra money here and there. And then fast forward a little more, Marco just sent me a random email to join the Zoom on Sunday, like a Sunday morning. He's like, join the Zoom. And I was like, what is this? He gave me no background at all. So I joined and I saw Marcus's face. So I was like, okay, it's about technology, I'm guessing. And it's going to be pretty innovative, I know, just knowing Marcus and what he does. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, okay, I'll just join. So I listened in and I heard a little bit of the background. And I started joining these daily calls that they started having and just learning. And then when they started talking about making it an actual business or a nonprofit, that's when I was like, oh, this can actually become something really big. So I just continued learning and doing all these projects. So I started shadowing, and that's where I started learning more. And that's when I noticed it was a really creative process, which attracted me more because, again, I'm not the most technological person. I'm more of a creative person. So getting to see that creativity is leveraged in this area, that's what really got me involved. And so at the moment right now, or as I would say through my journey, as Marcus mentioned, I'm in charge of turning all these stories or creating all these stories based on static information that's given from either companies or schools, depending on what we're doing, and just transforming it into like a story mode almost. And I think it's really important because all this information is just there and it's really static most of the time. So it's hard to retain. And that's what I noticed in school as well. I think that's why a lot of the times we don't retain information, is because we're not being as hands-on with it. We're just taking it in and not reciprocating anything back. So I think with Exponential Destiny, that's a good, fair mixture of retaining information, but also giving it back. And that's why, yes, go ahead.
So developing these stories would like what Pablo described as, taking this drone footage, would that be something that would kind of go to you, and then you would create the story around what the drone footage is showing, or am I off base there with that?
It kind of depends. So sometimes they would ask me to come in and help them figure out what would work best for what they're trying to do, because depending on the client or the person in charge, what they want. So they would ask me to come in and just be like, oh, does this look right? Do you think this would fit with what they're asking from them? So it's kind of more of a helping.
Hey, Sam, maybe give the Blend Hub example. That's a good example. Yeah. This is a client we had called Blend Hub. Go ahead, Sam.
We worked with a company called Blend Hub, which is a multi-localized food company. So their goal was to try to recreate one of their factories or hubs, as they call them, in VR, which is trying to take their mission and their objective of localized food production, which is having a farmer with their farm very close to their what is it called, their factories, to where they create their products. But it's all having it locally based and having it locally shipped, all local workers, kind of almost like our our mission in a way, trying to have the community build their economy. So we help them bring their idea and their website almost to life, because they had examples. And so we actually took one of their factories, or a potential factory, because they're all pretty similar in style and in architecture. So we took one of their factories and we put it in VR, and we just created the farm right next to it. We had a shipping area. We brought all their machinery into VR. We brought all their plans into VR, all their information. We had a mission room where we had their history, their plans. And then we had a deal room, which is where they would try to communicate with people around the world in VR, because at the time that's when COVID was still very high. So we couldn't meet in person. So yes, we helped.
Yeah. So Mike, that was a good example. Like, it's exactly like you said, Mike. Pablo would take a drone and go over the topography of like a farming community or something. He could even pull it off of Google Earth. He learned how to do that. And we could take the topography of an actual farming community in some part of the world and bring that into virtual reality, which is the environment that this company Blend Hub would go to in order to approach a local farming community and say, hey, we can build a localized food production capability for you here. And so in virtual reality, we would create the farm, we'd create the factory, and Sam was the story narrative designer of the whole thing. Like, how do you walk someone through this immersive and experiential model? And so everything from the farm where we had animals and livestock and crops to the factory, you get to walk in and see the factory. And Blend Hub has done an amazing job with this. They put out a bunch of promotional video. I mean, it's part of their core strategy now as a business. And they really credit Sam and Pablo and the team for helping them, design that. But keep in mind, rather than going to like a high-end consulting firm to go build something like that, we did this while also reskilling and upskilling resources. And I would argue that the quality and the creativity of it was better because it was, from this group of digital natives,
Yeah. Well, while she's in school as well. And so, Sam, I'll leave you now. Thank you for sharing that story. But I will say that, boy, storytelling is going to be an important skill set in any verse, meta or otherwise. So I think you're going down a really, really, really nice path there for a future. So, Kevin, why don't you go next? Let's tell us how you got involved and tell us about a project you're working on.
Yeah, of course. First off, thanks for having us on the show, Mike. This is awesome. This is my first time on a podcast, so I'm excited to be here.
You're doing well, by the way. So,
yeah, I think I was also part of the original expo group in high school. I remember kind of going to high school. I was a pretty good student. I would get really good grades. And I remember all my teachers telling me like, "Hey, Kevin, like start thinking about what you want to do in the future, right? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a teacher, right?" They gave me all these options, but I remember thinking to myself like, I don't really feel passionate about any of these, right? And that's when Marcus introduced the Exponential Entrepreneurship course to our high school, right? And I was like 15, 14 when this was first introduced, right? So to me, it was like, whoa, like there's like this whole new like entrepreneurship journey, right? That I could do. There's this different career path that I could take, and I didn't know it was an option, right? So for me, it was crazy. I remember thinking like, hey, like this is what I want to do. This is what I feel passionate about, right? So right when the exponential entrepreneurship course was offered at my high school, I joined it. I went full on. I learned about drones. I learned about 3D printing. I learned about Bitcoin. And I remember thinking like this is awesome. Like I love this, right? So I graduated high school. I went on to Grand Canyon University, and I decided to major in entrepreneurship because that's just how passionate I felt about it. There I started a business. I created a food delivery service app, right? With all these tools I learned from exponential entrepreneurship, right? I leveraged all this. I created an app on campus, and then that's when I reconnected with Marco, right? And then we started talking about, hey, you know what? Expo was great. Maybe we should maybe we should extend it, right? Maybe we should figure out some sort of way to keep it going even beyond high school. And then I remember I think Marcus contacted Marco. This was during COVID about starting that daily series. So it kind of just all worked out, right? Then that's when Marco was like, hey, Marcus wants to start something. So it kind of just all worked out perfectly. And then from there, we just started doing these daily calls. And that's when like Exponential Destiny was born. It was just this perfect thing that everybody wanted. And it was just meant to be. And now I'm here. I'm part of the commercial. I lead the commercial sector of Exponential Destiny. So any commercial clients, I can take lead in. For example, I went to that trip with Pablo to Miami. It was awesome. This guy, he wants to kind of just put Miami, his community, into the metaverse, which is awesome. I was excited to be part of that. Currently we're working with a client. I don't think I can say his name, but he's a crazy performer, and he wants to put his whole performance into the metaverse. And it's crazy because we got to experience this performance, which he sells for a lot of money, and we got to see it. And now we're working. Actually, Zack and Pablo are working on this project. We're putting this whole performance into the metaverse, which is crazy. Being part of these huge projects, being part of the future, really, it is exciting. And everything we learn, everything we experience, all the travel we get to do. I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to learn. People keep telling me like this is work and stuff like that, but like I just really have fun with it, right? Like I have fun putting on this headset. I have fun building these rooms. But yeah, that's what I do here at Expo.
Nice. Thank you. That's got to be heady stuff. And you work with those with somebody like that. It's got to be,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's
you got to
crazy.
pinch yourself probably, because it's really, you're creating something that's not real for them, but but it probably doesn't feel real to you either. Like that's
right. And to give these guys, you know, Mike, the reality is, I would argue that this team of young people is probably the most experienced metaverse designers you can find in the world right now. And I don't mean that facetiously. I mean, like, from the standpoint, they've been doing this for over a year and a half on all the different on like 3 or 4 of the top platforms, creating these environments. You know, we've learned so much. They're way ahead of the curve, which is our goal, to get a lot of other people ahead of the curve, you know, in the next year.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
I think something crazy that I'll ask is that, like, you know, we're also all friends, like, outside of Exponential Destiny. Like, several of us have known each other for years. Like, we're all from the same community. I swear, like, you know, like, we like all live like 3 or 5 minutes away from each other, which is like really goes to show that, like, the way Exponential Destiny has started was really from like a grassroots level. Like, it was really something that was born inside the community. And it's something that we want to, you know, we want other, you know, other groups to be, you know, to be available all across the country, because it's, you know, there's some magic to the community we've created here.
So, Marco, do you think that means that a group like this could be started anywhere as well? So there's really no.
Yeah, no, 100%. We're one of our initiatives for 2022 is like Exponential Destiny chapters, right? So that way we can like really provide the resources for other groups to like create their own local ecosystem, and then of course leverage, you know, the expertise that we've already, you know, expertise and resources that we have available for them.
Chicago's the big community we're going to in Q1. We're doing we got funded to do a real big project with one of the major high schools in Chicago. So start building a network and a chapter there.
Marco, I'll come back to you for more. I want to go to Iris now. It's Ochoa Garcia. Is that how to say your name?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about your experience and what you're working on now.
All right. So I started with Exponential Destiny when Pablo, one day he sent me a message and he was telling me how he's part of a group of people that are trying to, expand this company. And, I'm not a very technological person either, like Sam said. I'm more of like, I handwrite things a lot more. I like to draw, I like to paint and that kind of stuff. So it's like I never really thought of like VR being a space where you can actually create things. Like I thought of VR as being like more for like gaming, I thought of VR as if it was like a PS4 or like, that kind of console.
Okay, sure.
And when Pablo was telling me how they're trying to use VR to, create spaces for companies, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. Like that, I've never heard about like that kind of, use for the VR. So then I hop on the Zoom, and then a lot of the stuff that did not make sense to me. If I was being honest at that time, I was like, you know what, I'm kind of lost. It sounds very interesting, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be like good at this because I'm not a very technological person. It sounds a lot of like it's coding. It's a lot of creating. Right. So I was like, okay, I'll still give it a shot. And then I started attending these Zoom meetings. I ended up choosing Quext. It's like a it's a company that does like leases apartments, and they wanted to like make this apartment so that they could show their the people who are going to rent these places, how it looks like, what it looks like inside, because they rented to people that were, out of state, maybe even out of the country. And, it was a very smart idea back then. And I was like, damn, that looks pretty cool. That looks pretty cool. And so I started learning a lot of the terms that Marcus would use. And then I started getting more familiar with the vocabulary, with the uses of things. I started getting more used to using the VR set. We would go into VR to look at the space. And spatial, what it was then is completely different from what it is now. Now it's a lot more advanced. And you can really see how deep people are going into this technology, because we did this project last year, and within that time frame, like now it's easier to bring in objects, it's easier to move, it's easier to use like your Joy-Cons. Back then it was really hard to bring in an object, like you'd have to go through 10 steps, whereas now it's only like a click of your computer. So it's really like cool to see how much the metaverse, as you can say, it has expanded. And then now that Mark Zuckerberg has finally, changed the name of Facebook to Meta, it's like everybody knows about it, but at least all of us already knew about it before, it blew up and it became such a huge deal. Yeah. And now I've been working with them, and I look at the news for things about the metaverse, what people are doing, what kind of technological advancements have been happening. And then I'm also one of the team leaders, so when we have projects, I'm one of the people that work with our clients, and then we go into the spaces and help them set them up. I really enjoyed our educational our educational project, where we help these teachers and educational advisors go into these spaces and like really see how they can use them in their classrooms, because I would have loved to go into VR if I was still in school and was you get ahead of the game, and you start learning about things that will actually better your career and better your future and the possibilities. Yeah.
It's immersive learning on a whole new level.
Yeah,
like real immersive. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Iris. Thanks for sharing that. Zack, how about we go to you? You are in charge of the platform. I'm not sure what that means exactly, so why don't you tell us about your experience and what you're working on?
Well, so to start off, I guess I graduated at Michigan State University in 2019 with a degree in social relations and policies, which was a degree I really enjoyed. It was a lot about politics. My focus was on civil rights and minorities in America, but it really didn't have a career path attached to it. There wasn't really a clear, oh, I'm going to go from this and become this. It was an unclear path. And so getting out of college, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I enjoyed college so much. I enjoyed learning so much that once I was done, I was kind of lost. And so I eventually found myself working a desk job that I hated. Well, I kind of searched in the background for something that I had more passion for. And that's when Marcus on Thanksgiving had introduced me to his exponential entrepreneurship series. And so I started watching
Thanksgiving of last year, by the way. That wasn't not the
yeah, it
one
was
just
not
passed
last.
over a year
Yeah, it was
ago.
not last. It might have been 2 ago. Oh my gosh. And so I started watching all the videos that they had put up on the website until they started doing the Zooms where we all joined together. And once Marcus introduced us to I think we did six or eight different projects that he was working on that we could shadow. I was like, yeah, sign me up for all of them. I want to be at every single call. I mean, I like cut hours from work to go to these calls and listen in because I just wanted, it was so much more interesting and it's so cool, the work that we were doing. And I was learning again because shadowing Marcus on these calls, I was learning kind of the dialogue and the consulting model and all the methods, as well as learning all the platforms that we worked on. We worked on just one platform at the time. I don't know if I should bring up, I think it was spatial at the time. I don't know if that's
Yeah, there's three major platforms that we use because they're the least expensive and the most productive, especially for the market right now. This is in our judgment, they're kind of the highest ranked ones. One is Engage, one's Spatial, one's Engage, and one is Gatherings. There's also, Facebook's platform as well. We like the platforms where the avatars look very, very realistic, which means you can't have 100 people or 200 people in there because it will crash. So, but businesses and schools, they want the emotional connection. It's more personable, education, learning, or communication training. So those are the platforms that today are leading the market that we have that expertise in now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so learning, I think one of the coolest things that for me at that point when we really started learning the softwares was I'd always enjoyed playing video games growing up, and I always enjoyed the games where I was able to create things, go into an editor mode, build things that I liked. But there was always limits to those games where you'd have to kind of hack it to kind of build what you wanted. But we'd already done that in the softwares at this point, and we still do that kind of push the limits of what we're capable. But we actually got to meet the software developers for these companies and getting to have that relationship with the people who are actually building the software and being able to like have them build special functions for us, special builder tools, and give us like beta access to a lot of their stuff was really exciting to do and to learn and to master for me, because I really enjoyed doing that kind of building part of the project. And I asked, so when we kept on introducing new softwares, it was just more things to master, more things to learn. And so I do enjoy being a part of kind of every project that we touch on, just so that I can kind of share that expertise and partner up with the right people to bring in the right tools to build each project. And that's kind of where I've found my position in Exponential Destiny.
Got it. And are you no longer working in an office?
No, I quit that job so long ago.
Okay, good for you. All right. Well, thanks for sharing your experience, Zack. So Juan's joined us. Juan Ramon or Ramon Felix?
Ramon.
Juan. So you got us just here at the end. So thank you for joining us. We're basically going through each person and talking about how you got involved in Exponential Destiny in the first place and what you're working on now, what your experience has been.
And Juan, maybe you could share, we gave you honorable mention earlier, Juan, about that you quit your job at Target to take on a position.
Yes.
Why don't you describe that a little bit? Because that's a fun.
Definitely. So, it's a pleasure to be here. I would want to start off by saying that I started with Exponential Destiny since I was like 15. So I was also on the core group that started since high school. So that's one of the things, I've always been passionate about, just leveraging exponential technologies. Now, when I found out that, Marcus and Marco paired up again, that they were starting a whole new Exponential Destiny chapter, I was just, I was so excited. During high school, that was all we kind of did. I was just with them kind of exploring the new technologies, 3D printing, virtual reality, all these emerging technologies. So now when I hear that they're teaming up, I was like, wow, at this point I was, what was it, like a year a year ago, probably 20, what was it, like 2019? Like the ending of 2019 is when we started, from what I remember. And I was working over at Target, the Target, like the retail store. And I had Target and I was going to school. So I was kind of balancing Target, my job and school. I was doing full-time both. So that was kind of one thing that I was going back and forth. And now Exponential Destiny comes. And I'm like, whoa, like this is my passion. Like I've been doing this since I was 15. So it came to a point where I chose just to be pro bono, to just tutor, to be mentored by Marcus and the Exponential Destiny team. And then so I quit my job at Target, and I was going on for like 4 or 5 months, just getting trained, learning about the meeting with clients, learning about the new technologies, and then learning about VR. So now I come to the point where now I'm working with a global consumer product company called Senegens International. And what I'm doing is I'm helping them create, their metaverse experiences in spatial. So I'm helping them, their new distributors, come into the metaverse and learn about, their products, about, their different, the different spectrums of how they do their sales, their training methods. I learned all of this just from that company in like less than like 4 or 5 months, and now I'm actually doing their work in the metaverse.
He's
that's currently where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, he's their lead. So the funny thing here, Mike, was we did a project for a client, Senegens, like an 8-week sprint. This team did. Yeah. And we helped them really understand how to use Metaverse as a proof of concept. Like how could they use it with their 300,000, 200,000 distributors they have around the world, big consumer product company, cosmetics company. And when the project was over, the CEO asked me if I could continue on and continue helping them. I said, well, you know what? Juan was you saw Juan on the team there, hire him away from me. That's the whole goal. It's like, take him away and give him a job. And that's what they did. They gave him a job, and he leads, he's 19, 20 years old, and he leads the metaverse department for this company, because it didn't matter what his background or his resume or his college degree said. Companies need metaverse designers right now and people that really know how to operate in this space. And he happened to be one of the more advanced people on the planet at the time. So he got that job.
So is that the first full-time placement of anyone?
Well, we have 2 types of placement. We have a company like that literally wants an employee. So we've done that. Zack worked for Zack and Pablo. After we got done with one of our clients, a brokerage firm, they did this whole corporate trade. They created a university for this financial brokerage firm, where they created a university setting where you could get trained as a new recruit into this firm on all the, day trading, or all the brokerage trading stuff. They created a whole university, but Pablo and Zack did that. They had their own direct relationships and contracts with that company to do that work. So we've done a few things where we placed, and then we as Exponential Destiny, that's kind of what our model is. We don't, we're not a real consulting firm per se. Marco and I and Kevin and others, this core group goes and identifies clients, either a school or a commercial business. And then we identify the staff we have in our organization that we then put onto those projects, while we also upskill and reskill some people that shadow those projects. So right now you've got the leadership team on, but we have calls twice a week with an extended group with people from Baltimore and Chicago and Wyoming and all these other different areas that we're expanding to, because we're mentoring them, because we're about to place them on the next round of projects that we do.
Okay. Got it. Juan, thanks for sharing your story, and congratulations. That's really awesome. Marco, we're going to wind this up with you.
Okay.
Marco Vargas here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, it's been great to hear everyone's recollections of kind of how we got here. My story definitely begins when I was 15 years old. Some context is, I born and raised in South Central Los Angeles to 2 undocumented parents from Guatemala. They migrated here in pursuit for the American dream, and it definitely wasn't that. We being here, growing up low income, there were a lot of challenges, food insecurity, poor housing, right? A lot of things that unfortunately are hurting residents in South Central and beyond, right? But really, to me, I think there was like it started when I was 15 years old, but it's been able to carry out throughout my life till now, where I just started learning new things, and through the initial pilot and now college prep, when I was 15 years old, getting exposure to like, crazy concepts like Bitcoin and drone technology, like that really helped me just think bigger and have like larger ambition. And I think actually being able to apply it right, with friends, with mentors over the years, in the form of businesses and new ventures, projects, passion projects, has really been, I think, the reason why I am the person I am today. And at Exponential Destiny, when we first started, I mean, it's, you've kind of heard both sides. I was on the phone with Kevin on one ear, and then I was on the phone with Marcus on the other, and they were both saying the same thing: let's do something. And then like I was like, okay, well, let's put us all three in a call, and then we jumped on the daily meetings where we learned all about exponential technology, consulting, right? And as Marcus said, there was a really big flashpoint where, like, instead of just learning, about exponential technology, we actually got to do hands-on project work. And since then, our model has been fun. Project hands-on project work has been fundamental to our model at Exponential Destiny. And I think that's really important because, as a learner, I understand that, like, and in general, like, students specifically in the public school system, right? I think everyone deserves their own custom learning experience, right? But unfortunately, public schools can't provide that because of the resources that they have, right? Like, you can't have a student like me who's a project-based learner in a lecture-based classroom and be successful. That's just not going to happen. And that's why I think a lot of people kind of they'll check out, and and they'll get labeled and they'll become statistics, and it's very unfortunate. But I think that with what we're doing and, providing opportunity, employment opportunities for sure, but also like immersive and experiential learning experiences like that really is a game changer for us. And I know it firsthand because even me, like, I have a lot of love for, the college I was, accepted to Dartmouth College. But I was 3 years in, right? And then, we're doing the virtual learning, and it just wasn't working out for me. Like, I had a moment in like, and I love learning. I've always been, learning to me was an escape from the trauma I had growing up, to, the community. But like, I had a really big moment when I told myself, and this was during the pandemic, and I remember talking to so many people about this. Like, I was like, damn, I kind of hate learning right now. And it's like what about it wasn't working? It was something different. But then the work we're doing at Exponential Destiny showed me that, like, wow, like, like I have intellectual curiosity. It's just about, like, I want to channel it and I want to do it through projects. And that's really was that was like one of the really big moments that I actually decided to take a gap year from Dartmouth College, which was a big risk because I've never done something like that in my life. And then I would say, like, I balancing, businesses and then also Exponential Destiny in school, right? Like, I mean, there was a lot of things that, a lot of decisions, to make. But ultimately, I'm really excited about where 2022 is going because, like, with Exponential Destiny being a 501c3 nonprofit, like, where, and then of course with the metaverse taking off, which was totally predictable, I'm really excited about all the opportunities that, will come for everyone involved, for those who are going to become involved. And I'm particularly leading all the education work that we're doing because I think schools, are still, one of the best places for learning, right? It's just that they need help and guidance. And I think that, when I talk to, like, my friends who are school administrators, like, I mean, you can hear it from them, like, there's not enough resources, right? Not enough support, and there's clearly, like, this gap that, Exponential Destiny is working to bridge, and I'm all for it.
Well, thank you for that, Marco. And this has been just a really amazing experience for me to be in the presence of all of you, because I'm learning so many things. So first, I'm learning one, just about what you're working on, which is phenomenal. I'm learning that, people. There's no boundaries, right? There's like there used to be boundaries, right? But this whole, like, thing called a computer is really changing what used to be boundaries, and to hear your experience about how you're sort of pushing those boundaries away and getting into these real life environments that you used to have to work, you used to have to work hard and, put in your time and, prove all this stuff. And you're coming into these environments, helping people who and companies who don't know what they're doing, and proving that you don't necessarily have to put in 20 years to have a big impact on people and companies and communities and futures. And it's just been really great to hear these stories. And Marcus, thank you so much for having the idea that sparked all of this. And for all of you, I mean, there were a lot of connections with Marco talked to me here, Marco talked to me here. And I hope all of you are talking to everyone in your networks that you're meeting about this, because the impact that it's had on you and the opportunities that it's created and the opportunities you've created for other people seem to be like just the very start of something that is going to be amazingly huge and impactful for the world. And it's really fun for me to get a little front seat into each of your experiences. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I will keep in touch, and I will keep watching and learning about what you're doing. And one of you is going to be, or more of you is going to be something special. I can tell that right now. So you're all special, but one of you, I know, is going to be someone super well known at some point. And I don't know which one it is, and neither do you. So keep at it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did Happen podcast.